It's mind-blowing.
But I mean, we could look in there probably the list of guests because it was absurd. It was all of the CMC. Oh, now the camera's up apparently.
Let's get to the guests list here.
Sure. There's that beautiful cover.
I can't believe we got these people. Yeah, it was just multiple pages of guests. Yeah, so Michelle Krieber, Kathy Westluck, Peter New, Tabitha St. Germain, Lee Tokar, Kazumi Evans, Tara Strong, Claire Corlett, Andrea Libman, Madeline Peters, Shannon Shankin, Andrew Francis, and that was just the first year.
This was also when I believe Andrew Francis had been incorrectly credited for Braveheart. Anyone else remember that? Yeah.
Oh, very, yeah. Like it was the following year, but Andrew Francis was wondering why does everyone keep saying, oh, it was 2014, said, why does everybody keep like holding corn dogs out at me? Because of the Friendship is Witchcraft. And I said, Andrew, do you have 20 minutes? He's like, sure. And so I grabbed Griffin and Jenny, and we all went into a spare like ballroom that no one was in, and showed him the episode of Witchcraft with the corn dogs in it, so he knew.
I just want to mention as an aside that, I mean, it's kind of common these days for online fandoms to get in contact with at least some of the production staff of shows. It's that line is a lot blurrier these days. It's easy to get on social media and talk to some of your idols. But a decade ago, it was still pretty new. I mean, there wasn't really gigantic online fandoms around single shows. There was certainly like Tumblr blogs and... that was a struggle to say. It's been a while. Tumblr. Lack of a vowel in there. Yeah, so it was actually, in some ways, surprising how easy we could get in contact with the production staff because they weren't expecting the fans to reach out at all. I remember finding Danny Ingram's email online. I think he just had it publicly available on his LinkedIn page or something. I sent him an email and asked if he wanted to meet up in Vancouver and talk about Everfree and...
Yeah, they were just people. There was no celebrity culture at that point. It was just they were just people doing their jobs and making cartoons, and they just wanted to. They thought this was really cool, and they wanted to be a part of it, and that's why we had so many guests. It wasn't just because we it wasn't just because we went and sold ourselves. They really believed in this too. So I mean, it's just, and it's amazing that some of them are still here today. Andrea's here this year too. So it's just. Yeah. It's crazy. You want to show this thing?
Oh yeah, does either of you remember like exactly how this came about? Because I think the first year for me was a giant fever dream. I probably slept 4 hours across the weekend.
I can't remember how we did this, but do you want to hold this up here?
Absolutely.
So this is a first year staff shirt.
Yeah. Well, first see the logo.
Yes.
The toilet seat.
More IP infringement.
Definitely a horseshoe. Absolutely a horseshoe. And totally not the Space Needle in the middle. We weren't trying to do that or anything. But the back here, this was in my storage for the longest time. I forgot I had this. I can't remember who gave it to me, or if it was for me or for something else. But yeah, signed by all sorts of community guests.
Tara Strong, Lee Tokar,
actors.
Dusty Cad, Michelle Krieber, Alex S., Kathy Westluck. Who else is on here?
I mean, like looks like all the VAs we had, unless they had to leave early. A lot of the musicians we had the first year.
Final draft, yeah.
Yeah. Final draft. Thanks from EFR.
Son of a Mitch. Tabitha.
EFR.
Or was it EFN? Yeah.
EFR. Yeah. Tabitha. God, yeah. It's amazing.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I just brought a few goodies. That's awesome.
Yeah, and that look too. I remember for those that have missed it. It's that shirt that Royal had on too. It has the main 6 on it. There was the 1 count of copyright infringement we referenced also. But I didn't realize this, that it's you can't actually use the image of the Space Needle without licensing.
That's a twofer right there.
Weird, because it's a building, and it never would have occurred to me that that's a thing. But
yeah, it's privately owned. They're really weird about that.
And they're very litigious apparently too. They've gone after local like bakeries and stuff that are like, we're a Seattle bakery. Let's put the Space Needle in our logo.
And to be clear, they never contacted us about it. We changed of our own volition. We didn't contact them either.
Yeah, we learned a few things after the first year. But again, it was very innocent. We didn't really know what we were doing. We just knew we wanted to do it.
It
Yeah.
probably would be a good time to transition to questions.
Probably. So it's 11:13. We got a little over 15 minutes left. So yeah, anyone who has a question, go ahead and line up there at that mic, and we'll just get through as many of these as we can. Thank you all so much for coming, by the way. I'm glad that there's a lot of interest in hearing some of what it's like in the early years of an event like this. By the way, real quick, who was at the first Everfree? Look at that.
Yes, you were.
That's incredible.
Oh, man. Thank you, guys.
I also want to give a quick shout out to the love of my life, Kristen, who's in the front row, who is a vendor since year one.
That's right, isn't it?
And I also, again, the vendors, I do not want to leave out the vendors because they really, really, they really were integral to making this event happen and still are. So shouts out to the vendors.
Yeah. Go support them downstairs. All right, let's get going.
All right. Good morning, guys.
Morning.
I have a question about the naming process of this. Of course, it's called Everfree Northwest. Did the fact that the state of Washington is nicknamed the Evergreen State have something to do with that, or did that never come to mind?
It was absolutely a factor when we were deciding the name. And again, Everfree Northwest fit for various reasons, and because the fact that we can't remember any of our other candidate names kind of speaks to that too. We're thinking, okay, we're foresty, we're evergreen.
And Everfree is from the show. It's canon. It's
Yeah.
part of Equestria. And yeah, it's. By the way, speaking of naming processes, what's your name?
Red card.
Red card. Oh, okay, so you're a football.
Soccer.
Yeah, for the soccer rep.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it did factor into it. We wanted something that was, very northwesty, very, foresty, very alpine.
Pony, but iconic to our location.
Yeah.
My dad variably will call it Evergreen Northwest or Everclear Northwest.
I'll take it.
Anything that's not the
Oh, yeah, actually, thank you for reminding me because I have a really funny story about that from John Delancey.
Yes, I remember this as well.
So he did a really, John Delancey's amazing. He's such a sweetheart. He did a voice promo for the Everfree that he was coming to, which is 2015, I believe, was what it was.
Yeah.
And he did a voice promo as Discord, where he said Evergreen Northwest. And I corrected him, and then he did it again and then had Discord go, oh, no, it's Everfree Northwest. So, yeah, thank you for reminding me of that.
Good question, thanks.
Hey there.
Hi.
So, in relation to, convention, especially after 2012, and I'm not really going to mention the Unicon incident, were you ever worried, after that convention, the Hasbro would even trust you in doing a Everfree Northwest 2013?
Yeah, so there's.
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to
we're
keep
there.
this short because we're running
He
low
was
on
there.
time. So because we were in contact with production staff and Hasbro, we had a couple people ask us, "Hey, so this Unicon, this new convention in Vegas is happening. Do you know anything about that? Do you know who's running it?" And this was the first time we could honestly say, we have no idea who's running the show. We don't know what's going on down there. But I knew a lot of people who were going to check it out, and I was down there as well. I won't go into the details of what happened down there because that's a story that's probably been repeated many times.
Just call it the Unicon incident.
The Unicon incident. Thankfully, we had a lot of community leaders down there from various conventions, like BronyCon, EQLA had some staff members there, and of course Everfree had several people down there as well. So we were able to hold things together for the rest of the weekend, but there was this huge underlying concern that Hasbro would just say no to any future conventions.
Just
after
cut us
that
off at the
happened.
knees.
And I think they almost were to that point. I mean, there was serious talks across all of the conventions at the time, thinking this could destroy us. I mean, really, this is one of the events gone pretty horribly wrong that could botch things up for everyone. Now, conventions probably could still happen, but it would be a matter of whether or not we could get guests, which, to be frank, is one of the larger pulls to get attendance numbers up. So Yes, short and long answer. Absolutely yes. We were scared that could be it for all of us.
Many people don't realize the extent to which cons like this do continue to exist in a sort of gray area where if Hasbro really wanted to, they could put an end to it at the drop of a hat. It's part of why we have such a strong commitment to being a family-friendly event and to just ensuring that we don't overstep boundaries that might, the phrase escapes me, but attract unwanted attention.
Thanks, and never forget the hill and look a moose.
Look, Caboose.
Hey, I first wanted to give a shout out to the feedback panel that's going to be happening tomorrow after the closing ceremony. I actually suggested last year to give for poster tubes, and you ended up delivering poster tubes at the con store after you buy a poster. I wanted to say on the concept of on the subject of identity. Did you all feel that the identity of Everfree Northwest was set in stone by the first convention, or do you think certain things have changed over time? Because I know you really pride yourself on being a family-friendly thing. Was that always the case, or have there been moments that have diverged from that?
That was always the case. This is the same convention that this was 10 years ago. It's just bigger and better and more beautiful. But it has always been from year one, we had, at least an infrastructure to encourage families to come. I think we've always been free for fulls, haven't we? We always have since year one. Yeah. But yeah, having this be a family-friendly convention, we actually avoided using the term brony in our branding because we wanted to make sure that it was inclusive of people who were original fans of the 1970s toys, young children that weren't part of the online brony community, people who felt like the label was too gendered. We wanted to make sure that it was completely inclusive, and it still is.
Yeah, and looking around, honestly, it's like last year, this year, I almost tear up because this is the event we were building. This is what we wanted to do. Like from the music to the gala to having kids in here for free. This is the amazing space to hold this kind of event, and this was the dream. And you kept it rolling and achieved it. I mean, we haven't been involved for years at this point, but it just continues to blow my mind that Everfree is still running.
This is the first Everfree I've been to since I think 2016, 2015. So it's a lot has happened in my life, away from ponies. But
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be home. Thanks all of you. So,
Thank you for answering the question.
First of all, just wanted to thank you for this wonderful con again.
Go closer to the mic a little bit. Thank
First
you.
of all, just wanted to thank you very much for the wonderful con.
Thank you for coming.
And quick question. So what was the biggest, after the first time, looking back, what was the biggest lesson you learned going from con 1 to con 2?
There's probably a few. The first one that comes to mind is don't ever have 20, 30 guests, especially when you're a convention of under 2,000 attendees. We didn't really think to have a cap on it because we weren't sure who would be able to get, so we kind of threw an offer everywhere and ended up pretty much getting 100% acceptance from whoever we asked.
Yeah, like people we really didn't get a lot of no's from the voice cast or the production team. Everybody wanted to be a part of it, including the comic staff and later conventions.
And it was so novel at the time, right?
But yeah, it was completely novel, especially because it's a 3.5 hour drive for everyone who works in the show. That's a really big deal. Like that's a lot of people are gonna have to get on a plane, a different time zone. But for us, it's like flash a Nexus pass and you'll be down here before lunch if you get an early start.
That continues to pay off in the fact that, the past few months there have been so many disruptions in airlines, and the fact that we don't need a lot of our guests to fly in has given us another layer of security there that has made our work a lot easier in that space.
Yeah, if you haven't already gathered, and I'm just going to kind of volunteer this, the guest side of things with the production team and the cast and crew is an outsized portion of the amount of work and overhead that goes into making this convention happen. It is a really huge part of it. It involves a lot of meetings, it involves a lot of negotiation, it involves a lot of, a lot of soft skills. So it's definitely a lot of work. So as Bajati said, 20 to 30 of them, maybe maybe scale it back just a little bit. So,
That, and then also taking the extra effort to try to find out people who have experience in the management positions you're trying to fill, which wasn't really a lot of options for us in the first year. We just kind of like, hey, does it sound like something you could do or learn how to do? Let's do it. You're in.
All right, thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Let's try and do speed round just so we can get through everyone in the line here. We got a little less than 10 minutes left.
Well, thank you for 10 years of basically a weekend of home. I wanted to ask, since, we have all these wonderful guests year after year, when do you think we could get Lauren Faust?
Lauren Faust, oh boy. That's a tough one.
that's up to this guy here. It's all sound.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the type of feedback that we love to hear, and every year we do have our feedback survey that you can fill out, and you can come to the panel over there. It's really based on demand, and the more we hear a name, the more we are able to see that this is something that the attendees want, and the more resources we can think about putting towards that. So it's tough for me to say like we'll do it or we won't do it, but anything's possible. We need that kind of feedback and encouragement that the demand is enough that it will certainly pay off.
And we did get Bonnie Zackerly one year, which was amazing.
Yeah, that was great. The original creator of original My Little Pony toy from way back. That was awesome.
You want to talk about if it weren't for one person, we wouldn't all be here. It's her.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah,
I won't be
great
here for
question.
the rest of the weekend, so everybody get that name, please.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm Luna Bruni. I'm from Mexico. This is my first time for Everfree Northwest 332. I'm John Luis Bruni. I'm from Latino Collaboration. Yeah, thank you, understanders. Since when did you know the Mario Pony from G4? When before you became brownies and did you first ever free Northwest?
Was the first question when we first got into the show? Or into My Little Pony in general?
Yeah, the My Little Pony G4.
Yeah, we just briefly mentioned it earlier.
Right.
I jumped in February of 2011, so
Maybe a month after
it
that.
was, I think it's when Derpy dropped the safe or whatever whatever episode that was. Feeling Kinky Keen.
Something
Yeah,
like that.
Feeling Kinky Keen? I'm amazed I can remember that name. And so super briefly for me, it was some art journal someone had posted online and mentioned that, oh, I guess Derpy is canon now. And that was enough of a phrase to intrigue me. Like, what does that mean?
So
This
many
My
layers
Little
of
Pony
obscurity.
So I went and looked at the origins of Derpy, and then I went and looked at the first 2 episodes so I could get the context of the animation error, and then I accidentally watched 11 episodes in a row, and then this happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Were you asking, also, by the way, bienvenidos, were you asking if we were into My Little Pony before the show, before G4?
Yeah, and since 2012, first My Little Pony in 2012, and this is the best series of G4. I'm so nervous, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks for
I'm
coming.
from Mexico. This is my first time for Everfree Northwest 332. Happy birthday anniversary!
Thank you so
Muchas
much.
gracias.
Thank you for being here.
So this may be kind of a vague or naive question, but and I know that
Here, can you come just a little bit closer with the mask? It's hard to hear you.
okay. I know this is kind of a vague or naive question, and I know there's multiple chairs and multiple producers who play a big part in Everfree Northwest in all. But would you say there's like one person up there who you would say, quote unquote, owns Everfree Northwest?
So the way that Everfree is structured presently is there's Pegasi Northwest, that is a 501c3 federal nonprofit, and there's a board that is in charge of that company. That board consists of 3 people. We have Big Kyle, who's our board president, we have Thornwing, who's our treasurer, and we have Curtis Himmel, who's our secretary. And those 3 are in charge of the board. The board then elects a chair, which is me, and then from there we put together our structure of volunteers. So there isn't a single person that owns it. It's all under the umbrella of a nonprofit corporation, a charity, essentially, that is dedicated to putting this show on every year.
Okay, first of all, congratulations on 501c3. That's something we never
been a few years
actually.
now. That's
It's a big deal for us.
That's a big deal. So to build on that, even though Bajati and I have at times co-chaired the convention, because we usually like to have a chair and a co-chair or vice chair, because we want to make sure there's some redundancy in case one of us falls off a cliff, has a nervous breakdown, or gets turned to stone. We were also on the president, so I was also on the board, and while we were involved in the convention, I was board president, he was vice president, and our board on Pegasi has fluctuated between the very small board that's now 3 people, and at one point it was like the Supreme Court at one point. It was nuts. It was like the burrito Supreme
It was
Court.
7 for a while, and I think we had to add a few. We got up to probably 10 or 11.
Yeah,
Got some,
it was.
I can't remember.
But
There's been some reorganizations through the
We definitely didn't quite know what we were doing on that side either.
That's cool. Would you
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Would you say that Pegasi Northwest is like the parent company?
Yes, it is.
It is,
Pegasi
literally.
Northwest is the parent organization.
Okay, that's cool. Okay,
Thanks a lot.
great rest convention.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right,
Thanks.
one more, and then we'll wrap it up.
Good morning, gentlemen. My name is Mike Check, and I happen to be the guy that yells his head off at video games from Bay Area Burning Spectacular.
can you come a little closer to the mic? Thanks.
If you ain't noticed, the squad from DadsCon is here, and we would like to wish you a happy 10th anniversary.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much.
Speaking of that, I do not represent DadsCon's board of directors in any way, shape, or form, but I would like to note our 10th is coming up in 2 years, so there you go, in 2024. So, I don't represent the board in any way, but I'm curious. Advice, please. How do we throw as big a party as this one?
One more time. What was the last?
What was the last question?
Oopsie, sorry. How do we throw as big a party as this one? Because ours is coming up in 2 years.
So my general go-to advice for anyone trying to start a convention is which is not to actually try and discourage people from if they truly aspire to put together something like this, but it's just very important to know that the road is very long and difficult.
Often very thankless. Often you put
Yeah.
a lot of your own resources into it.
It took more than 10 years off our life, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, that's but DadsCon is having their 10th anniversary in 2 years. We'd love for you guys to show up.
Ooh,
if
yeah, that'll
possible.
be coming up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
All right, folks. Well, gee, maybe we'll actually be able to end this thing on time.
Wow.
So,
How about
just
that?
before we do go, I do have some things for you, and I will make sure that Royal gets one as well. But these had to be run up to me earlier. But these are commemorative challenge coins for this year,
That is gorgeous.
featuring
Oh.
front page on one side, the first convention mascot we ever had,
And our seal on the back.
and our seal on the back
How
with
cool
the
is
mission
that?
statement, bringing
Thank you.
Equestria to Earth for 3 days.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're-
And anyone
you're so
who was
welcome.
involved with putting this together. Oh,
Yeah, so these
They're
were made
nice.
by Chocolate Pony, who is one of our community guests and our vendors, and you can get these at the con store if you would like one, as well as we had one last year for Marina. So check those
Please
out.
buy con merch. Go
Please do that. Alrighty, well, that's our time. So I want to thank everybody for coming to this, and let's please give a huge thank you to our panelists, the founders of Everfree Northwest, to Royal Coke, to Markarian, and to Bajati for joining me today. It's so good to see you guys. I'm so glad you could make it.
thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for bringing Equestria to Earth once again. Here's to the next decade.
All right, folks. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of the con. Enjoy your Saturday.